I was just trying to get home. It had been a long day, the kind where everything feels a little off. But you chalk it up to exhaustion. My usual route was blocked by construction, so I figured I'd take a detour. Nothing fancy, just the back roads. That's when I came across the abandoned train station. It was strange how quickly the landscape had changed. One moment, I was cruising down a sleepy stretch of highway, the kind of road you only see in movies about small towns. The next, the scenery opened up into an old, overgrown railway yard. The station itself was nearly hidden by tall grass and rusted tracks. I should have turned around right there, but I didn't. Curiosity is a strange thing. I slowed down as I passed, trying to catch a glimpse of something, anything, that might explain why such an old building was still standing. The station had an eerie look to it, like it was waiting for someone to return. I saw no signs of life, no cars in the lot, no lights in the windows, just a pale, decaying building, with the once bright green paint now peeling away. Even in the daylight, it seemed wrong. I parked my car along the gravel road, hesitant but intrigued. There wasn't a soul in sight, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and rust. I figured I'd walk around for a bit, maybe snap a picture or two. The sound of my boots crunching on the gravel was the only noise as I approached the station. I could hear the faint sound of wind whistling through broken windows. The building looked abandoned, but the strange thing was, it didn't seem completely empty. There were signs that something had been here recently. Small objects were scattered on the ground, things that didn't belong. An old leather glove, a broken flashlight, a torn-up ticket stub. I took a step closer to the station's entrance. The doors were half open, and I could see the faint outline of the interior through the dusty glass. It was dark inside, but there was something about the shadowed corners that pulled me in. I couldn't quite explain why, but I felt drawn to it. The air felt heavier here, colder. I took another step forward. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from inside. My heart raced. At first, I thought it was just the wind, maybe a loose piece of metal caught in a gust. But then, I heard it again. A slow, deliberate thump, like footsteps. But not from a human. I froze. My mind was racing, and my body felt like it was trapped in place. I glanced back at my car, a few yards away, but the thought of running made my legs feel like lead. A strange impulse pulled me forward instead. I wanted to know what was making the noise. I shouldn't have, but I couldn't stop myself. I stepped inside. The dim light from the broken windows barely illuminated the room. It was filled with old wooden benches and peeling ticket counters, all coated in layers of dust. The far corner of the room seemed darker than the rest, like it swallowed the light. And that was when I saw it. A shadow. A figure, just standing there, perfectly still. I couldn't make out any details. It was like my eyes couldn't focus on it. My breath caught in my throat. The figure seemed to shift slightly, just enough to confirm that it was moving. "Hello?" I whispered, barely able to hear my own voice over the pounding of my heart. There was no response. I didn't know why I stepped closer. It was like something was pulling me toward it, making my legs move on their own. I couldn't look away. My eyes locked on the shadow, even though I didn't want to. The thudding grew louder, faster, and then it stopped. For a moment, everything was still. Then, I heard it, a soft scraping sound, followed by a whisper, as if someone was right behind me. I whipped around, but no one was there. Just the dusty old walls. I turned back to the shadow, my mind screaming at me to run. It was gone. In its place was nothing but the darkness, swallowing up the light from the shed windows. I stumbled back, my breath shallow. My head spun, and the room seemed to tilt to one side. My eyes darted around, but there was no sign of the figure. I rushed toward the exit, my legs shaky and unsteady, but as I reached the door, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me. Fast, coming closer. I ran out of the station, slamming the door behind me. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I didn't stop to look back until I reached my car. The engine roared to life, and I sped away, my hands tight on the wheel, my thoughts racing. What had I just seen? Had I imagined it? I glanced in my rearview mirror, expecting to see nothing but the empty road, but what I saw made my stomach drop. A figure, standing at the entrance of the station, watching me. It was too far away to make out any details, but the way it stood completely still, like it had been waiting for me to leave, sent a chill down my spine. I didn't stop driving until I was far from the station. But even now, as I sit here writing this, I can still feel that presence. Like it's following me, watching me. I don't know if I'm being paranoid or if something really did follow me out of that station. But one thing's for sure, I'm never going near that place again. Not ever. And I'll never forget the feeling of being watched. I never intended to be there that night. It was supposed to be just a brief stop, a quick cut through some quiet back roads to avoid the highway traffic. But when I saw the abandoned train station, something about it piqued my curiosity. I'm not normally the type to venture into places that feel off, but that night I was alone, tired, and had a strange pull to explore. I'm not proud of it, but I took the turn. The tracks had been rusted over, and the buildings, what little was left of them, seemed untouched by time. The old station itself had a decayed elegance, like it used to be something significant before everything fell into disrepair. The kind of place where memories linger in the broken windows and fading signs. I parked my car near the platform, unsure of what exactly I was hoping to find. It was late, almost too late, and the wind was picking up, whispering through the abandoned station like a reminder that I shouldn't be there. I grabbed my phone and my flashlight, deciding to at least stretch my legs. The station was clearly deserted. No one had come through here in years, but still, there was something unsettling about the silence. Not peaceful, not calming, just heavy. I walked towards the main building, the old station sign swaying slightly in the wind. My footsteps echoed against the broken concrete as I tried the door. Locked. I wasn't surprised. The place was old, a ghost of what it had once been. But as I turned to leave, something caught my eye, movement, just past the broken windows, a flicker of light. My first thought was that it was a car headlight, someone else pulling into the lot. But when I glanced back at the road, I saw nothing. The nearest highway was miles away. I stood there for a moment, my pulse quickening for no reason I could explain. The light flickered again, and this time, it was unmistakable. It wasn't a headlight, it was a lantern. A small, swinging flame, barely visible through the dirty glass of the window. Someone was inside. I don't know why I felt the need to go inside. Maybe it was that little voice in the back of my head telling me that the place wasn't empty, that I wasn't alone. But I pushed the thought aside and stepped through the station door, which creaked loudly on its hinges as I entered. The lantern wasn't there when I looked, but I swear I heard its soft clinking, like metal on metal, faint footsteps on old floorboards. I was getting paranoid, probably just the wind. I told myself that, but the air felt wrong. The kind of chill that cuts into your skin no matter how warm it is outside. I pressed on, my feet moving faster, drawn by the mystery of what I couldn't see. The deeper I went into the station, the more I felt it, the sense that I wasn't supposed to be here. The lantern light flickered once more, and I followed it. That's when I saw it, an old man, sitting in a chair near the window, his face hidden in the shadow. His clothing was a mix of old-fashioned train conductor and something older, more worn. The light from his lantern gave his face a hollow look, like a reflection of the station itself, worn out and forgotten. He didn't acknowledge me, didn't move. It was as though I wasn't there at all. But I knew he saw me. I felt his gaze on me, cold and calculating, though I never saw his eyes. I should have left. Right then, I wanted to. But something kept me rooted to the spot. He was waiting for something, I realized. Waiting for something or someone. My throat went dry, my body suddenly aware of just how quiet everything was. Too quiet. I stepped back toward the door, the floor creaking louder under my feet. But when I turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind me, trapping me in the station. I spun around, panic rising in my chest. The old man was still sitting there, staring out the window, unblinking. The lantern's light flickered again, casting strange shadows that seemed to dance across the walls. But I wasn't alone anymore. The air was thick with something, an oppressive presence that made my skin crawl. Then I heard a train whistle. Distant at first, almost unreal, but getting louder, closer, as though the train was on its way to pick me up. I froze. The whistle sounded again, and I could hear the rumble of wheels on the tracks. The train wasn't supposed to be there. I checked my phone. No trains were scheduled to pass this station at night. There were no trains at all. The man in the chair finally moved, slowly turning his head toward me, his face now visible. His eyes were empty, like the sockets had been carved out. His lips stretched into a thin smile, and I saw the faintest flicker of something behind him, another shadow moving in the dark. I backed up, but the floor seemed to shift beneath me, like the station itself was alive, its creaking wooden bones pushing against me, trying to keep me there. The train whistle grew louder, closer. The sound of a train pulling into the station echoed in my head, though I could see no tracks, no train. And then everything went silent. I could hear nothing but my own heartbeat, thudding painfully in my chest. The man was gone, the lantern, the shadows, they were all gone. The station was as empty as it had been when I first arrived, and yet something still lingered, something dark, waiting. I don't know how I got out of there, but I did. I ran back to my car, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. I didn't look back as I drove away. I didn't want to. But even now, as I sit here, I can still hear the train's whistle in my head, the screech of metal on metal, like it's following me, just waiting for the right moment to arrive. The station might be abandoned, but it's not empty. It never will be again. It was late afternoon when I decided to take a detour from my usual route home, one of those instinctual choices when the road stretches out in front of you like a blank canvas. The weather was cool, a crisp breeze sweeping across the landscape, but nothing seemed unusual at first. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the empty countryside. That's when I noticed the old railway station, half hidden behind thick trees, nearly swallowed by the creeping vines. I hadn't even realized this station was still standing. It wasn't on any map, and I hadn't seen any signs of life in the area. It was almost like it wasn't supposed to be there at all. My curiosity piqued. I parked my car along the gravel road and stepped out. The air felt heavier now, as though the entire place had been holding its breath for years. There was a faint smell of decay, but nothing that screamed danger, so I decided to take a quick look around. The station was more worn than I had imagined. The wooden planks that once formed the platform were rotting, covered in patches of moss, and the station itself was a crumbling relic of a bygone era. The old ticket booth, the faded signs, and the empty waiting benches all seemed to be echoes of something forgotten. It was peaceful in a way, but unsettling. It felt like time had stopped here. I was about to leave when something caught my eye, a crumpled piece of paper sticking out from under one of the benches. It was an old ticket, tattered, yellowed, and slightly damp. I picked it up, brushing off the dirt and grime. The ticket was dated decades ago, or at least it looked like it. The destination read Shady Pines, a name I didn't recognize. It looked so real, so authentic, that for a moment I thought it might have been a prop from some forgotten film set. But then I saw the date, the 18th of September, 1965. It felt strange, holding something from the past in my hands. I wasn't sure why, but a sudden pull to go to that station, to Shady Pines, flooded my thoughts. Something about the ticket made my stomach churn, like it had been waiting for me to find it. I hesitated for a moment, then tucked the ticket in my pocket. It was only a piece of paper, after all. It didn't mean anything. I didn't realize just how much it would come to mean until much later. The walk back to my car felt different. My footsteps seemed too loud against the silence of the station. The wind had picked up, but I could still hear the distant sound of something else, something faint and almost imperceptible. A whistle? The soft click-clack of train wheels on tracks? I turned to look, but the tracks were empty. There was nothing there, just rusted iron and overgrown weeds. I shoved the thoughts aside and got into my car. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the calm station, or whatever I just experienced, was still behind me, watching. The ticket in my pocket felt heavier with each mile, like it was pulling me back toward that forgotten place. The drive home was uneventful, but the next night, I couldn't stop thinking about that ticket. I had to know more. Who had been traveling to Shady Pines back then? Why had the station been abandoned? There were no answers I could find on my own, so I went back the next day, retracing my steps from the night before. When I arrived, everything had changed. The station was no longer abandoned. It was bustling. There were people everywhere, walking about, chatting, and waiting for their trains. The platform was crowded with passengers, all dressed in clothing from another time. I blinked, unsure if I was seeing things. There were no cars parked along the gravel road anymore. Instead, vintage cars from the 1960s lined the station, their polished chrome glinting under the Sunday. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. I had to be dreaming. This couldn't be real. I tried to calm myself, but the more I looked, the more the scene around me felt like a living, breathing snapshot from the past. A train arrived, steam billowing from its engine, just like the ones in old photographs. I couldn't tear my eyes away. The ticket in my pocket, my old ticket, seemed to burn through my jeans. I was compelled to get out of the car, as if some invisible force was urging me forward. I approached the platform cautiously, my feet hesitant on the gravel. I passed by a group of people, but no one seemed to notice me. The world around me felt like it belonged to a different time, and for a brief moment, I wondered if I had somehow crossed into it. And then, as the train started to depart, I saw him, the man at the front of the train, the conductor. He was looking directly at me, a faint smile playing at his lips. My heart stopped. His eyes were cold and knowing, as if he had been waiting for me, for this moment. In a blur, I reached into my pocket, pulling out the old ticket. It was still there, but now it looked different. The edges were crisp, as though it had been freshly printed, and as I held it in my hand, I realized something. The name on the ticket wasn't just Shady Pines, it was my name. I tried to step back, to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen. The train was pulling away, the conductor's gaze never leaving me. It was then that I realized the past had been waiting for me, not the other way around, and somehow I had become part of it. The train disappeared into the distance, but something stayed with me. The station was empty again, as if nothing had happened. There were no people, no trains, no sounds, just silence, and the ticket in my hand, burning against my skin, now dated today. I don't know if I'm still in the past or if it's come to find me, but I know this: I can never go back to the way things were. The ticket is all I have left of that place, and the more I hold it, the more it pulls me in. I'm not sure where it's taking me, but I have a feeling the journey is far from over. It was supposed to be a simple trip, just me and my friend Jenna, hiking through the outskirts of town to explore an old railway station. We'd heard stories about it, tales of ghostly whispers and faded remnants of a time long past. But I never imagined that day would end like this. It all started innocently enough. We arrived at the station just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the overgrown tracks. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and rust. The station itself stood like a forgotten monument, its once vibrant paint peeling away to reveal the gray skeleton beneath. Windows were shattered, the roof sagging in places, and the platform was choked with weeds. Jenna, always the bolder of the two of us, was already off exploring. When I arrived, her excitement infectious. "This place is so cool," she called, her voice echoing in the eerie stillness. I followed her inside, careful to step over the broken glass and twisted metal. The air inside felt cold, almost unnaturally so, despite the warm evening outside. It was as if the building itself exhaled a kind of oppressive chill. But I didn't think much of it. I was used to abandoned places. Things like this were usually just old, rundown relics. Nothing to fear. We poked around for a while, taking pictures and laughing at the odd, decaying artifacts left behind. A suitcase here, a broken clock there. Old train schedules still clung to the walls like forgotten memories. Jenna found an old metal sign and waved it at me like a treasure. "Look what I found. This place is a gold mine." I laughed and called back, "You know, it's weird how quiet it island. Not even a bird around here." But before I could finish the thought, I heard it. A faint sound, like a distant whisper, barely audible against the howling wind outside. I strained to listen, but it was gone. Just the wind, I thought. "Jenna?" I called, turning back toward the main hall. No response. I assumed she was just messing with me, one of those hide-and-scare games she liked to play. But when I made my way through the dusty corridors and back into the main hall, I couldn't find her. I called her name again, my voice growing more frantic. I looked around the station, checking every room, every nook and cranny. Nothing. No sign of Jenna. It felt like she had disappeared into thin air. Panic crept into my chest. I tried to reason with myself. She couldn't have just vanished. Maybe she went outside without me noticing. But the place was silent. Too silent. I decided to go back to the platform, thinking maybe she'd just wandered off. I stepped outside and looked around, calling her name once more, but all I heard was the wind brushing through the tall grasses. That's when I saw it. A figure standing at the far end of the platform, a dark silhouette, almost indistinguishable from the shadows, but I could make out the shape of a person. I ran toward it, heart pounding. "Jenna, is that you?" I shouted, relief washing over me, even as I felt the unease in my stomach grow. The figure didn't move, just stood there, unmoving, facing away from me. I stopped a few feet away, unsure of what to do. Something about it felt wrong. "Jenna?" I tried again, my voice shaking. Finally, the figure turned. It wasn't Jenna. The face I saw was gaunt, pale, and sunken, the skin stretched tight over bone. The person's eyes were wide and vacant, staring straight through me as if I didn't exist. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. The figure didn't speak, didn't even blink. They just stood there, locked in place, their eyes never leaving mine. My mind raced, my body frozen in fear. What was this? Who was this? Without thinking, I turned and ran back into the station, my feet pounding against the rotting floorboards. I needed to find Jenna. She had to be here somewhere. I couldn't leave without her. But the moment I stepped back inside, something shifted. The air grew even colder, like an unseen presence was closing in on me. I felt it, brushing against the back of my neck, the hairs standing up as if I wasn't alone. I sprinted down the hall, calling her name in desperation. But no answer came. The station seemed to stretch on forever, each hallway leading to more darkness, more silence. It was as if the walls were closing in, the shadows swallowing me whole. That's when I saw it. A door cracked open just a little bit, with light spilling through the gap. Jenna's voice called out from the other side, soft and distant, but unmistakably hers. "I'm in here. Come on in." I rushed forward, relief flooding my chest, but when I pushed the door open, the room was empty. The light flickered for a moment, then went out, plunging the room into darkness. I fumbled for my phone, using its dim flashlight to illuminate the space, and then I saw something that stopped my heart. On the floor, etched into the dusty wooden boards, was a message. It was scrawled in what looked like blood. "You shouldn't have come. She's not who you think she island." My pulse raced. I backed away from the words, my mind whirling. The whisper from earlier came back, louder this time, faint voices, faint laughter, all around me, but I couldn't make out the words. I spun around, searching for Jenna, but she wasn't there. And then I heard her. A soft laugh, coming from somewhere above me. I looked up just in time to see a figure drop down from the rafters, Jenna's face twisted in a grotesque, unnatural grin, her eyes hollow and dark. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered, her voice not quite her own. I turned and ran. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The station was no longer just a place. It was a trap. I don't know if Jenna is still in there or what she has become. But I know one thing for sure. Whatever waited for me in that station, it's still there. And it's waiting for anyone else who dares to enter. It was supposed to be a quick job, just a couple of hours to survey the old railway station and document its condition before the city decided what to do with the place. I was an urban explorer at heart, so the thought of getting paid to explore an abandoned building didn't seem too bad. The station had been closed for decades, left to rot and crumble, but I was told it was safe enough. The city needed a report before they started renovations, and I was the one to do it. When I arrived, the station was more unsettling than I expected. The structure had clearly been neglected for far too long. The once grand building now stood in silent decay, the windows boarded up, the roof sagging in places. There was no life around, not even the usual street. Noise. Just an eerie stillness that seemed to hang in the air. I pulled out my flashlight and notebook, ready to get to work. I pushed open the creaking door, the sound echoing in the vast, empty hall. My footsteps were the only sound, the air thick with dust and the smell of mildew. The wooden floors groaned under my weight, but the place felt mostly safe, aside from the occasional loose board. I made my way past the ticket booth, noting the old schedules still tacked to the walls. Everything was covered in layers of dust, abandoned years ago but still holding on to the faintest traces of its former life. The ticket counters, the benches, the faded station signs, all relics of a time long gone. I set my equipment down and began taking photos of the main hall, documenting the cracks in the walls, the mold growing in the corners, and the loose wiring dangling from the ceiling. It was the kind of job that didn't require too much thought, just methodical observation. But then I heard it, a low, faint, scratching sound. I paused, my heart skipping a beat. It was so subtle that I almost convinced myself it was just the building settling, but there was something too deliberate about it. It was coming from somewhere inside the walls. The sound of something moving, something small but persistent. I walked toward the nearest wall, my flashlight beam flicking over the cracked plaster and exposed pipes. The scratching continued, a rhythmic, almost desperate noise that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I leaned in closer, pressing my ear against the cold stone, but as soon as I did, it stopped. I took a step back, uncertain. Maybe it was just rats. The station was old, after all, and rodents had a way of making their presence known in places like this. Still, there was something unsettling about it. The noise had felt too deliberate, too alive. I shook off the feeling and went back to work, trying to focus on the task at hand, but the scratching didn't stop. It started again, this time louder, faster. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The sound was unmistakable. Now it was coming from deep within the walls, not just the surface. Whatever it was inside the station. I moved along the hallway, trying to trace the noise. It seemed to be coming from one of the back rooms, near the station's old maintenance area. The door was slightly ajar, and I hesitated before pushing it open. The room beyond was dark, the faint light from my flashlight barely cutting through the gloom. But I could hear it clearly now, scratching, scurrying, like something was pushing against the walls, desperate to break free. I moved inside cautiously, my flashlight dancing over the old equipment that had been left behind. Then, without warning, the scratching stopped again, followed by a sickening silence. I stood still, straining my ears for any sound, but there was nothing. I took a slow step forward, the floor creaking beneath me. And then, I felt it. A cold breeze brushed against the back of my neck, like a breath of air from somewhere deep within the walls. My skin prickled, a wave of dread washing over me. I turned, but there was nothing behind me, just the shadows and the forgotten relics of the station. The scratching started again, louder this time, as if whatever was inside the walls had finally found a way to push through. My heart raced as I took another step back, my flashlight trembling in my hand. I was about to turn and run when the wall in front of me suddenly buckled. A fist-sized hole tore open the plaster, and out of the darkness, something emerged. A long, thin hand, pale, with nails like claws, gripped the edge of the hole. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was paralyzed, unable to look away. The hand was followed by something else, a face, too wide, too pale, with hollow eyes staring straight at me. Its mouth opened in a terrible wet rasp, and I saw something shift in the shadows behind it. It wasn't just one thing. There were others, more hands, more faces. I stumbled back, finally breaking out of my trance and turning to flee, but the air grew thick, suffocating. I could hear the scurrying inside the walls, growing louder, like something was rushing toward me. The door slammed shut behind me with a force I couldn't explain, trapping me in the room. I screamed, pounding against the door, but there was no escape. The walls were alive, and whatever was inside them was closing in. When I finally broke free, I ran for the exit, never looking back. I don't know what those things were, whatever had been living inside the walls of that station, but I know they're still there. I can still hear them, scratching, scraping, just waiting for someone else to wander too close. And if you ever find yourself in that station, don't listen to the whispers. Don't follow the scratching. Whatever you do, just leave, because once they're awake, they won't let you go.